Hey everyone, so this is my response for week 5 about evacuation. This week we were focusing on evacuation efforts during times of disaster in communities. One of the key terms I picked was evacuation, which is basically when members of the community have to leave an area or the area that they're from when there is an expected event that's going to happen or an event that's already happening that's putting them into danger. So they have to leave the area for a period of time until that threat has passed over. Another term I picked was panic, which is it was kind of addressed in the Chapter 8 article, Myths and Realities of Disaster Response, which basically brought up the point that a lot of people expect panic to be a common response or an overwhelming response in communities in response to a disaster situation that basically makes people unable to make good decisions or seem to know what to do in response to the disaster. The main idea was that it's a stubborn myth. It's not true. And another issue resulting from the idea of panic taking over communities in response to a disaster is that it kind of becomes the reason that the public isn't given complete information about the disaster that they're facing. So public officials don't really give everything that they know to the community because they're worried that if everybody knows what's going on, then they're going to freak out and chaos will take over the whole area. But a resulting consequence of this is that people are more reluctant to do what the officials are recommending them to do in response to the disaster whenever people feel like they're given vague or incomplete information. So if they feel like they're not getting everything, they're less likely to do what they're being told to do or recommended to do. So this is clearly a problem. For my muddy point, it wasn't necessarily content focused. It was more specific to the event in the Houston article. I was just wondering, because they were talking about two different events. There was a supposedly serious hurricane that the Houston was going to experience, and for that first event, they ordered the city to evacuate, but the evacuation ended up being really chaotic, and more people died because of the evacuation than the actual hurricane, because the hurricane ended up not being that bad. And then at the second event that they talked about, it was a lot of rainfall and potentially a hurricane, but they didn't evacuate the city. They told people to stay there and hold it out. But my muddy point was basically how did these officials decide when it was time to tell people to evacuate or not? Because it seemed like the one situation didn't work with evacuating, the other one did. So it just seemed like a chaotic situation that resulted in both of those incidents. So my question for this week is, should people be able to decide for themselves if they should evacuate an area? And this obviously would also rely heavily on officials' ability and willingness to communicate all the information that they know about the event that's happening so that people can make a decision for themselves that is reasonable.